Hello, everyone. Today, I want to introduce you to the notion of cryptocurrency, and specifically, we're going to focus on Bitcoin. We're not going, I claim that this will be a mathless meeting because we're not going into detail of all the algorithms, all the math behind the Bitcoin system. We're only going to focus on the key techniques used by the Bitcoin system without going into detail about them. Here's the content that I am going to cover in this meeting. I will begin by introducing you to the late 20th century scientific progress. I'm going to specifically focus on the field of computer science as well as the network. Then I'm going to introduce you to a group of people who I think are a group of true liberalists. It's called Cypherpunks. And one of them is Wei Dai. Wei Dai is later on employed by Microsoft. He raised this idea of B-money protocol and he published his idea to the group. This protocol motivates a lot of people to think about real implementation of cryptocurrency and eventually gives the birth of Bitcoin. Although like Satoshi Nakamoto modify a lot of things and create a lot of things on his own, but it is undeniable that Wei Dai's B-money protocol is very influential in this group of cypherpunks as well as to some of the cryptologists in the 90s. Then we come to 2008 economic crisis. This is not an economic meeting, but I'm going to introduce you to the historical content of 2008 economic crisis. And we're going to look at how that is linked to the birth of Bitcoin. I said previously that I'm not going into detail of the Bitcoin techniques, but I will introduce you to how the Bitcoin system works and what this system consists of. Then I will introduce you to some trends and I'll propose some of my thoughts in the form of questions. Okay, in 1961, the idea of ARPANET, short for the Advanced Research Projects Agency Networks, is proposed by J. Licklider. So the idea of ARPANET initially helped to connect 4 universities together so that university researchers could communicate more easily. Based on this idea of ARPANET, in 1969, the internet is officially born. Following that, in 1971, R. Tomlinson developed the first email system that allows communication between different users through the ARPANET. Before 1971, only users of the same device could communicate with each other through the email system. However, Tomlinson made the progress here. He allowed users on different ends to communicate with each other by using ARPANET, which is a prototype of the email system that we have right now. In 1991, Lee released the World Wide Web. Many people refer to the World Wide Web as something that connects the world together as a village. It facilitates people's communication with each other. And the most notable thing about the internet and the World Wide Web is that we're establishing a very big database together. It allows us to search in this database and to put more of our idea into this database and to store them for future use, perhaps. In 1993, one of the first web browsers, Mosaic, went online. All of these happened in merely like 40 to 50 years. We're seeing how fast the scientific development is, especially in the field of computer science. And we're sailing, I make an analog statement here. We're sailing to this new world of the internet in a fast speed during the late 20th century. During our entrance to the new world, a group of people called Cypherpunk noticed that Powerman has the desire to gain control in this new world. And they're a group of liberalists who advocates privacy. To give a definition for cypherpunks, they are a group of individuals composed primarily of computer scientists, cryptologists, and computer engineers who wants to redeem privacy, to promote the notion of freedom, and advocates cryptography as a potent foundation of such societal transition to the new world. What they're trying to do is to reserve people's right to share their information, to share their identity to other people's. They want to protect such right for people to be free in this new world without being controlled by and regulated by a third party, which is government in many cases. The Wire magazine featured them on a cover in 1993 with the issue titled "Rebels with the Cause, Your Privacy." So here we're seeing the level of influence cypherpunks has and how their ideology resonates with many others in the society back in the 90s. So as part of the notion of freedom, the notion of freedom of transaction is also respected by this group of people. They are thinking about creating such online environment that allows freedom of transactions and as well as protects people's privacy. What they want to establish is essentially what Timothy May refers to as crypto anarchy. He defines crypto anarchy as the following. This is a quote from his book, Crypto Anarchy and Virtual Communities. Crypto anarchy is a cyberspatial realization of anarcho-capitalism, transcending national boundaries and freeing individuals to make the economic arrangements they wish to make consensually. With the invention of network, cypherpunks are able to create such a system that basically transcends the national boundary, allows people around the world to make transactions much more easily. And they want such a system to be decentralized, such that there is no party regulating all of the things and having power to stop some of the transactions and so on. They also wanted to protect people's privacy in the economic arrangements, which is something worth noticing because we're a cryptography club. We care about people's privacy. So based on this, a lot of people started to develop the cryptocurrency, or what they call eCash. One of them, Wei Dai, a cypherpunk, raised up with this idea of B-money protocol. So this protocol is ideally formulates how the B-money system could work. He didn't give any very detailed algorithm or like math in this protocol, but he kind of sketched out a blueprint for the B-money system. He sent this protocol to the Cypherpunks mailing list, and this protocol inspired a lot of people to work on creating an actual cryptocurrency, and later basically influenced Satoshi Nakamoto to create the Bitcoin system. It definitely has some kind of influence in the creation of the Bitcoin system, but that doesn't mean that Satoshi Nakamoto takes everything from Wei Dai. The Bitcoin system consists of a lot of ideas, a lot of brilliant ideas, and that is like plottable. So yeah, one of the main techniques that Wei Dai uses that's worth noticing is broadcasting. In the creation of money, he says anyone can create money by broadcasting the solution to a previously unsolved computational problem. We'll get into this unsolved computational problem later, but now we're going to focus on the technique of the notion of broadcasting. And in transfer of money, every transfer needs to be broadcasted to all members in the system. This whole broadcasting thing ensures that all the transactions are regulated, no, not regulated, are visible to people in the system, to every nodes in the system. And people could check the validity of such transaction by looking at the broadcasted information. And the broadcasting technique basically makes the beam money system self-regulated. And thus, there is no central figure needed to regulate the system itself, and everyone in the society, everyone in the system could regulate to witness all the transactions. Okay, we now get to 2008 economic crisis. Lehman Brothers, an American investment bank, was filed for bankruptcy in 2008. Linking together was Lehman Brothers. Many international banks were dragged into this big swamp of economic bubbles that they created themselves, which is absolutely ridiculous. This marked the start of 2008 global economic crisis. Concerned about the sickening financial system, the US government passed the bailout bill, and several European countries at the time followed its action. The bailout bill basically uses taxpayers' money to help out these bankers from their dilemma. The bailout bill is questioned by a lot of people when it comes to using taxpayers' money to save these silly people who are the economic bubble blowers from their own dilemma. And this whole system, this whole like bailout bill, it's issued by the government, and government has sort of in this process has a power over the taxpayers to implement such bill. This controversy turned some of the people at the time to the rising Bitcoin, which is totally decentralized in contrast to the real world economy. Okay, so the Bitcoin system is associated with this. I don't know whether this is a person or a group of people, Satoshi Nakamoto. This is a pseudonym that it has nothing to do with the person or the group of people's true identities. Many think that Satoshi Nakamoto is a British man because in his writing, he is very native speaker sounding, and in the Genesis blog, he included the title of an article from a British newspaper. But some other people think that Satoshi Nakamoto, just from the name, is a Japanese. And the closest kind of image that people are getting, not the closest because I don't know who this guy is, but the kind of image that people are imagining is like a math professor from Japan. And there's a photo of this guy. I think his last name is also Nakamoto online. You could check it out and see whether my statement is correct or not. I think in my impression he is a Japanese professor, and his last name is also Nakamoto. But anyway, in 2007, Satoshi Nakamoto started writing codes for Bitcoin. And in October 31st, 2008, Satoshi Nakamoto published the white paper of Bitcoin online. In this white paper, he recorded down a lot of brilliant ideas that laid the foundation for the Bitcoin system. And a lot of key techniques he used in the system of Bitcoin. In 2009, he is making it the reality. Satoshi Nakamoto released a Bitcoin software online, and he collaborated with several collaborators he found online to modify the system and to actually make it work. In 2010, he handed over Bitcoin software to Gavin Anderson and quit it. So no one knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is, but he did great things. Okay, here is the Genesis block. This first block in the Bitcoin blockchain. It is how Bitcoin started. Satoshi Nakamoto included the title from a British newspaper called The Times into the code of the Genesis block. He encoded the title "Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks" in this Genesis block, potentially mocking the existing economy system, which is centralized by some private banks or the public banks, the national banks, and the government. And he promotes his own system, the Bitcoin system, which is totally decentralized and give power to every single users of it on every nodes to witness all the transactions. He is awarded with 50 Bitcoin by the system. Now I'm going to introduce the key techniques that Bitcoin uses. So I'm going to talk about, it has basically 3 parts. So the first part is coin creation. So the Bitcoin system is sort of an imitation of the real world economy, or I think more accurately, it should be the modification of the real world economy, because it is solving some of the problems that real world economy has. We know that US dollars are directly linked to the price of gold. So gold is the equivalence of wealth in our existing economy. A lot of energy is required to obtain gold. So it takes energy for us to dig a hole into the earth and to get the gold out, to refine them, smelt them, and which this whole strenuous process sort of qualifies gold as a precious equivalence of wealth. Satoshi Nakamoto makes an analog statement about coin creation as gold mining. This is a quote pulling from his white paper. The steady addition of a constant amount of new coins is analogous to gold miners expanding resources to add gold to circulation. So the gold here are the Bitcoin blocks. These blocks are used to store new transaction informations into them. And so to keep the system going, because a lot of transactions happen and they need to be recorded at a place. Blocks are essentially the places that they are recorded. And the whole process is strenuous because gold mining is equivalent to seeking solution for an computational-wise irreducible question, which is to find another block to restore transaction information. Satoshi Nakamoto designates this whole process as gold mining. This question is mathematically irreducible because there's no shortcut to find the solution. We need computers to run all the trials and to get to find the solution to the question. And this whole process is called Bitcoin mining. It is worth noticing that coin creation, this whole like finding a solution to the irreducible question, is not raised by Satoshi Nakamoto. In WDSB Money Protocol, he also raised this idea, but he didn't mention the block part, and also he didn't specify this sort of question. I refer to coin creation in the Bitcoin system as a win-win strategy. It is a win for the Bitcoin miners because they are awarded with a certain amount of Bitcoins after they mined a block. This is the incentive that encourages them to mine more blocks, and so the system will keep going. It is a win for the system itself because the new blocks are used to store transactions and thus to maintain the system. And the second part of the Bitcoin system is transaction. Transaction is a very technical part of the Bitcoin system. It involves a lot of advanced cryptographical techniques such as blockchain. So the whole system of Bitcoin rely on this structure of blockchain. To elaborate on how blockchain works, I want to make an analog statement. So imagine we're building a tower of blocks with this rule. So we have the first block and we put it on the top. Every time we want to add a new block to this block tower, we put this in the bottom of this block. So this process will keep on going and this block will be taller and taller. And if a hacker wants to get one of the blocks out, then the whole system, the whole block tower just crashes. And I didn't mean that the Bitcoin system will crash when the hacker tries to hack one of the block, but this hacker isn't able to reach all other blocks because they're linked together. And the hash function basically makes sure that each transaction is secured by encrypting them, and hash function also makes sure that the message is complete. And the digital signatures is an idea from that comes along with the Diffie-Hellman key exchange, as well as the RSA like encryption scheme. So each users are assigned with a unique private key. They could sign their document with this unique private key that they own. And these keys will make sure that they're anonymous. Those things are not directly connected to their true identities, thus to making sure that they're anonymous and their identity isn't revealed to the general public. And each user also has a public key, which is open to everyone in the community. People could use this key to check the document that they sign and to make sure that this document is valid. And lastly, the timestamp. Timestamp solved the double spending attack in the Bitcoin system, which is when a user tries to distribute the same portion of his money to two users in the community at a different time. So this timestamp function will make sure that the first transaction is valid, yet the second one is not. And this to make sure that this person doesn't spend his money twice. Now I want to introduce you to the last part of the Bitcoin system, the systemic equilibrium of the Bitcoin system. This is the most critical part of the Bitcoin system because systemic equilibrium keeps this system going. So I basically named it the equilibrium. There are two parts of this equilibrium. The first thing is the aware control. So block miners, no, Bitcoin miners mine new blocks and they're rewarded with certain amount of money. This certain amount of money needs to be the right amount to be a big incentive that encourages people to mine more new blocks so that the new transaction information could be recorded in the new blocks, and so the system will keep going. There is a set of algorithm that helps to determine how much Bitcoin should be rewarded to a user. This amount of Bitcoin shouldn't be less than certain amounts because it needs to be a strong incentive, and it shouldn't be too much because then there will be a lot of Bitcoins in the system and the economic system is not balanced. And the second part of the systemic equilibrium of the Bitcoin system is the chaos control. The users of the Bitcoin system in the Bitcoin system is transacting all the time. They need new blocks to store their information, like after a certain time interval. So the mining speed shouldn't be less than the transaction speed, or otherwise we're running out of place to store all the information. Although there is like an abstract idea of a pool of transaction information that is firstly stored in the pool and then moved into the blocks. But we need to make sure that the speed are almost equal to each other so that we don't have accumulated transaction information in the pool and they're not stored in the block. That is not ideal in the Bitcoin system. So the speed of the incentive that motivates people to mine more blocks and the speed of that is also controlled by a set of algorithms that maintains balance between the speed of transactions and the speed of block mining or Bitcoin mining. These two parts keep the system in a balance such that the system is actually working, and people, the Bitcoin miners, are motivated to mine new blocks and be rewarded with a certain amount of Bitcoin. This is really important because if this incentive isn't strong enough, then the system will be out of balance. There will be a lot of transaction information stored in the pool, and these information might not be made valid anymore. And if the pool accumulated too much information, the system might just break down. And that is not ideal in the Bitcoin system. So that's something serious that the Bitcoin system designer needs to think about. This is a screenshot that I took on March 23rd, 2021. So we could see that there is a spike in 2018. Some people speculate that the spike is caused by market manipulation, and others speculate that this spike is caused by the sort of the people's concern about this 10-year curse. Each 10 year there is an economic crisis. People doesn't want the same thing to happen again in 2018 as it happened in 2008. So they turned to Bitcoin. The price sort of goes down because there is a very large cryptocurrency attack happened in 2018. And recently we're seeing that the price start to plummeting again to a very high price, that is because a lot of big companies like Tesla and some hedge fund invested in Bitcoin and makes the price really, really high. If we assume that the system of Bitcoin stays vibrant and becomes more active as time moves forward, which it is, then there are two types of winners. The first type of winner is the early in players. When they invested early in the Bitcoin development, the price was very, very low. And if they hold on to the money, to Bitcoins, and they continued now, then because the Bitcoin price kind of rises, they want a lot of money. And the second kind of players are who bet really big in the system. If you like invest a lot of money in this system and this system stays vibrant, then the price will rise again. And so these big players win a lot of money from the Bitcoin system. And here are 4 questions that I think are thought-provoking and we could think about them. The first question is how and when will Bitcoin connect with the real world economy? A lot of countries are against implementing Bitcoin and connecting it to the real economy. They are against people to transact with Bitcoin because they are concerned about problems like money laundering. And so I don't know when and how will Bitcoin connect with the real world economy. And this question is sort of related with the fourth. Is Bitcoin a stock or will it become an economic system that replaces the centralized economic system? I don't think it will replace the centralized economic system because the government has a lot of power to control and regulate people's activities. So I don't think Bitcoin system will become one that replaces the role of central government. And many people actually refer to Bitcoin as a stock because some people are manipulating with the Bitcoin and making it just like a crazy stock because it doesn't have like a real equivalent of wealth in the world, unlike those products. But it is initially designed as an economic system, so there is sort of a contradiction between the definition of Bitcoin as a stock and as an economic system. The third question I have is how sustainable this Bitcoin is. If no one ever transacts in the system, then the system will die. And there is a very, very, very interesting economic paper that is on this topic. The author, Dr. Phillips, explained this by using automaton. Although I don't agree with all of his opinions, but I think it is worth looking at. So I'm going to post this with the recording in the group. And the last question that I have is who maintains the Bitcoin system? This is something that you can find online. There is Satoshi Nakamoto basically describes how this works. And I'm also curious about who makes improvements in this Bitcoin system because Bitcoin system has some issues. It needs to be improved. So I don't know who will basically make the improvements in this system because this is supposed to be decentralized. I have heard that there is a group of individuals, a group of programmers who make improvements in this system, but I don't know whether they belong to an organization or not. That is something to think about, and also how that threats Bitcoin's status as a decentralized economic system. these are things worth thinking about. Here are some of the references and some additional reading. I guess that's it. I plan that next time we will talk about ECC again, elliptic curve cryptography again, because I haven't finished talking about them. I have prepared for a very long time.